That's right, community, it's AI Friday. This week, we'll embed the most pertinent buckets on AI in the news to help you ingest for inference. Before we get going, don't forget to click like and subscribe. And now, unprompted, AI Friday.
Oh yeah, Byron, are you ready for our positivity episode?
I am.
Cool. Me too. I'm excited. I mean, we're gonna so much, of the time we end up going kind of doom and gloom. And today we're gonna talk about some things which I think are much more positive than usual.
Yeah, it's always a double-sided coin, and I think just by virtue of I'm focused on security, you're focused on like the OWASP top 10 for LLM apps. We know that
Security.
we got a long way to go before we get a handle on it. There's already use of generative AI to help defenders, right, with operations, like gathering insights. So yeah, perhaps we need to revisit both sides of the coins more often, but this one we're totally gonna showcase the positive side.
That's right. And we are going to get to the positivity in a moment, but we are going to start off with a couple of interesting news items as well that we didn't plan on talking about them, but they happened. And so we got to make sure that we cover all the wow stuff. So the first wow for me is just the people that we're going to actually get to do this with. And that is Mr. Joel Moses and Ken Aurora. These guys are like,
all right,
some of our absolute best and brightest.
Yeah.
So.
Hey, Aubrey. Hey, Byron. How you doing?
Hey, it's so good to be here. Friday. I look forward to this every Friday.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to some positivity and sweetness today.
Me too. And I there's a couple of these. It's funny because we talked about it ahead of time and said it's going to be neat to see people go positive on this one. Let's see how we get positive on a couple of these.
Absolutely.
But
big week this week too. I mean, I don't know how you can get bigger between announcements of massive funding pockets and releases of new open models. I mean, we're firing on all cylinders this week.
Well, open models, like let's just get right down into it, right? DeepSeek. This, and I told you this before we hit record, Joel. It kept coming up in the news over and over and over again. I kept seeing DeepSeek, and
this comes out of China, Chinese researchers, but released under the MIT license, which makes it open. The largest model being roughly 671 billion parameters, demonstrating incredible results even versus O1. And that's great. You've got basically on one side something that's free and open and people can build with and explore and see what's good about it. And on the other side, there's something that costs $200 that you got to buy, which, from a positivity standpoint, this is great because it means there is super innovation going on in the community. And there's also competition, and competition is great because it's going to make everything better. I'm really impressed by the work that's been done here, and the researchers seem to bear that out. Accuracy with this is great. What's most important is that relative to some of the cognitive models, the token cost is really low, which is that's super for the environment.
Yeah,
and that's
I was going to say that to me is on the positivity theme, the democratization of AI. That's how Byron put it. It is the fact that it's so much less expensive than OpenAI and their operator announcement, another announcement this week.
Yeah.
It means that this was not going to be limited to people who can pay was it $200 a month?
Right.
This is order of like under $1 per month or so.
Yeah, it's fabulous news. This is going to change a lot of things.
Yeah, and
OpenAI seems to be moving to more like an enterprise tiering pricing model and bundling, and I think this is going to perhaps shake that up, right?
Yeah.
And here are those token numbers. I mean, just to kind of put it out there for anyone who's actually viewing the podcast rather than listening, you can actually see all these numbers. But if you are just listening, just to give you an idea, O1 is for a specific prompt can cost 100 tokens. By comparison, DeepSeek V3, 1 token. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean the token cost seems significantly better. The accuracy seems better. But again, researchers they're just now getting into what all of this means, and I'm sure we're going to take the good pieces of some and the good pieces of another and combine them together into something better. Rising tide raises all boats, and I think that's what you're seeing here with DeepSeek.
Yeah, most definitely. And have any of you guys used it yet? I have not.
I have poked around at it just briefly, but it's brand new, and I've had a lot of things to do this week, and I foresee a weekend of toiling in the lab.
Wait a minute.
But it's legit open source. Like you can download the source code.
MIT license. Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
It's not
amazing.
It's not open source ish like Llama. It's open full.
It's under a good license that I like. Yes.
Yeah.
Under a good. Okay, well, it makes me wonder if there's going to be a GPL license coming out anytime soon.
Yeah.
That's maybe a challenge for the new community. Let's get out there and do something to see if we can't catch up with DeepSeek. Yeah.
Speaking of catching up, the other big news this week was Gemini. Gemini released support for app chaining or prompt chaining, as I guess you would call it. So we're seeing Google move forward with Gemini and actually actively and commercially release the ability to chain one application to another using Gemini prompting. This is kind of hinting at where they're going with their agentic approaches, and it's a little bit like the task function that we talked about last week, but this one appears to be a little bit more powerful, a little bit more well designed. And again, it's great to see things like this. Being able to create a stepwise thing that can steer multiple applications is going to increase the utility of this tool. So kudos to Google.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this affects how we think about APIs, because we've just before Gen AI, everything was structured. Even machine learning was structured, and so on. Now we go to a model with chaining where the APIs themselves are sort of unstructured English. Be interesting to see how this affects everything from API versioning to API security, and to take something else that's close to my heart.
Yeah.
No, I didn't get a ton of time to read this one. Is this going to be giving us the capacity to do kind of like if then else prompting? Is that
a little bit? A little bit. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how many of those logic structures are actually in there, but you can absolutely chain one action to another. Create me a list of tasks, order these tasks according to what you learn from this, and then do these things with each one of these tasks. And that's pretty powerful stuff. How that actually reacts directly, like you're talking, I'm not really sure, but Google is actually kind of leading the charge here on this one. So I'm impressed by what they've done.
And this is, sorry, Joel, this is not the same as LLM chaining, which we know is already in place, like with OpenAI behind the scenes. This is sort of like giving the user more control over how they go through the different applications.
And how information flows through the various sequences of prompts. So yeah, great stuff.
Yeah.
We also have to, we got to talk about the big announcement that was made public this week, although I understand it's been a long time in coming. And this is super big for Byron, being in Texas, because it's great for Texas. And that's the announcement of the Stargate Program, which imagine my disappointment that it wasn't about traveling between galaxies. But it is a huge investment in improving innovation for domestically generated and domestically supported AI. I think it's a big step for the country to take. It's a big level of investment. And of course, you've got lots of different companies that are involved in this, from SoftBank to OpenAI to Oracle to NVIDIA. And that's great. It shows a level of cooperation and a level of partnership and a huge level of investment that, quite frankly, I think a lot of investment in AI has been isolated into specific pockets. This is the first one that we've seen that's actually fairly large and split across multiple technology partners. And there's build-outs that are going on, and that means great things for the number of jobs that this will create domestically. And it also, again, raises all boats. Innovation and competition is a good thing. This is a big statement.
Agreed. And just because the Texas lens, I was curious, so I researched what specifically about Texas, and they actually chose Abilene, Texas, for the initial build out, 10 to 20 data centers. And I was like, that's interesting. I've never been to Abilene, but I knew it's not a major urban hub like Dallas, Houston, Austin. So I did a little bit of research. It's 150 miles west of Fort Worth. So you're like, okay, you go past the stockyards and you keep going, right? And it was established by cattlemen as part of the Texas and Pacific Railway. So you're like, I'm still kind of curious. But it is a hub already called the Big Country in 19 counties. But a couple of things that I'm like, aha moment was, for decades, the Dyess Air Force Base has been the city's largest employer. And they also have college branches for the Texas State Technical College and Cisco College, not the company, it's just the name of the college. But to Joel's point, the Stargate project was perhaps a interesting name because it's actually the name of a secret U.S. Army unit established in 1977 in order to investigate the potential for psychic phenomena in military and domestic intelligence applications. So it's not that, it's not, time travel or space travel. It is this consortium in order to, advance or rapidly innovate in the AI space.
The urge to say, or so they claim.
Or so they claim. I looked at
positive, Ken.
I watched the announcement. Of course, they had Sam Altman and Larry Ellison talking about all sorts of different things, and I tried to kind of compare. Is Sam Altman, is he the Dr. David Jackson character? Would that make Larry Ellison Teal'c? I think that's probably the right character for him. But Ellison had a lot to say about the utility of the research that's going to be done out of the Stargate program, and a big one was cancer research, right? Which I think is fantastic, and you know what? I think it's time to start some positivity.
Yeah, well, that was technically the first positive article because of the economic. So I guess that's the positivity, but it's not not quite the same thing as saving a baby's eyesight.
Yeah, no kidding. So
that's positive.
I'm super excited, and we're going to talk a lot about this in a little bit. But the what generative AI is able to do for healthcare is nothing short of earth-shattering. I've been tracking this story for a little while, and this has been around for about a year now. But it's actually seeing productive use within unserved communities. So in the third world, it's very common for babies to be born prematurely, and premature babies often suffer from a variety of health problems, one of which is called retinopathy of prematurity, or ROP. ROP can lead to blindness if it is not caught extremely quickly and a treatment plan designed. It's almost a foregone conclusion that the child will lose their sight. The difficulty is, if you have good prenatal care, ROP is not really much of a factor, but in underserved countries and in areas that are far remote from medical care, it occurs pretty frequently. And the way to diagnose it is you have to take imaging, and the typical mechanism is to take video imaging and look for changes over time, look for structures similar to the picture you just saw floating by. And it requires a lot of expensive equipment, and it requires a specific and trained medical eye in order to diagnose this properly. In a lot of underserved areas, it takes 3-4 days for someone to come by who can actually do the diagnosis, and by then it's too late. This technology actually uses generative AI to take still captures from lower quality camera or sensing elements and still produce accurate output diagnosis, up to 99% accuracy in some trained models, to allow a doctor to determine whether ROP is present. And it literally, it's mere days between being able to save a child's sight and losing their sight forever. And generative AI is being actively applied here, and I think that's fantastic.
It's funny because it's a very specific use case, the ROP portion. But I think, again, before we hit the record button on the podcast, you and I were talking a little bit about how this is going to change telehealth. Maybe that becomes a much kind of stronger function in our medical field in this country, which again was a big, as we go for positivity, a lot of this stuff is medical, and I think that's maybe because we need some serious help in the country medically.
Yeah, I mean, between the iPhones that we carry that have very sophisticated high-resolution cameras with full-motion 4K video, and between the health sensors that a lot of us wear on our wrists without even noticing it, A lot of things can be done for telehealth based on a wide array of things that can be sensed from the environment. And we've only begun to explore how that volume of data can be coalesced into something valuable, which is warnings about our health. And that I'm excited by that.
Yeah, there's I don't know if you guys have seen, there's this app, I think it's Novos, is NOVOS, I think is the website, where it's basically this app that you take a selfie with, and it uses many algorithms that from peer review seem to be actually reasonably accurate, and it's another one of these ways of figuring out your biological age. So it looks at your facial image, and it's been trained on millions of images. Actually, at this point, I think it's about 1 million images, and supposedly comes up with a reasonable representation of your biological age based on your facial image. And that's that combination of high resolution camera that most of us have, at least in the first world.
And it would take one look at me and say, "Oh, you've got 3 teenagers."
Yeah.
I get that.
Hasn't there been research already? I can't remember the exact context, but the AI was able to detect medical anomalies with surprisingly high accuracy, like 80 to 90%, I think was the number.
Yeah. Medical bioimaging has basically been, there's a revelation going on in that field related to training models, and again, this is all kind of human backed and human assisted, because you start with a radiologist that and then you sample a wide array of experiences and diagnoses from multiple radiologists, and over time the accuracy levels climb to the point where it's just as good, if not better. And it's certainly faster than a lot of radiologists at diagnosing things. So,
what about compared to a dog? Because they have really good smell.
It's a good. I don't know if we've gotten the AI smell factor down yet.
I thought that's what they call the lab work.
I see what you did there.
I got it. I get that.
Or what about dolphins? Like they can see right into your lungs, right through you. No,
Wow.
Hey, this is back to the Stargate.
Or dolphins.
We're not supposed to talk about what's going on with Stargate.
Yes, that's right.
But that reminds me, it's the fact, like Joel was talking about, some of this stuff, like, okay, a trained radiologist with good equipment can do this, but the positivity, it's the accessibility, the availability of this. It's now, you don't have to be a rich person in the first world to have this level of care, whether it's the ROP or whether it's cancer diagnosis. AI makes all this much more available. Another thing that I remember reading, and I thought, this is really interesting. I wouldn't have thought about it up front, but another of the big issues with underserved communities is language. Even in, say, the U.S., a lot of underserved communities have a lot of non-native English speakers.
Yeah. And
that becomes a barrier. And we were talking about telemedicine a moment ago, right? Aubrey brought that up.
Yep.
Being able to do just something as, basic, you don't think of as particularly medicine oriented, as real-time translation is incredible. Marry that to these high resolution cameras you have, where the doctor can get a really sense, you can get AI analysis. This takes democratization. AI takes what was available to, say, the top 10% or 20% of society, and makes it available to everyone.
It makes more doctors available to more people, and that can only be good.
Yeah,
truly. And even if the AI are just assistants, spectacular. That's great. We've got the ability to serve so many more people, and to treat other things too. I mean, it's not just ROP, right? I mean, we've got advances in cancer research.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, this was, I think, an article I stumbled upon earlier this week, and it was just, they were asking, not specifically around AI, but they were just asking a lot of leading cancer research. Okay, well, this one is about the underserved areas. That's great too. There is a lot of work going on. The cancer article was just asking some leading cancer researchers about their predictions about what would happen in 2025, and that, unsolicited, but perhaps not surprisingly, I think of the 5 people that are interviewed on this, 3 of them mentioned AI as a primary driving force for what's going to happen. And we've touched upon some of these things already. They're already better for many cancer. AI is already better for many cancers at predicting outcomes. It is, for some cancers, better at detecting than the best systems we have today. And that's just by virtue of something that Joel talked about a moment ago, the multimodality of the data that we have coming in. We have those sensors that we have on watches. I think I think Samsung just today announced that they're putting a blood glucose meter on their next generation watch.
Wow.
Is that just gonna like stab you in the wrist every
Yeah, every hour
it'll stab you in the wrist.
Oh.
Yeah, that's well designed sensor, that one.
Yeah.
This brings up an interesting conversation, though. So my wife is a hairstylist by trade, so we often joke about. I'm curious what you guys think. Would you get your hair cut by an AI hairstylist?
Hell yeah.
Low risk exercise for you there, Aubrey.
We're probably not your target audience.
Sorry, man.
We're keeping it positive, but AI with a sharp object, something to think about.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. One thing that was really interesting, I wanted to mention from the cancer stuff, is the antigen therapies, right? So one of the ways to treat cancer is they come up with antigens, and they're both sort of a generic cocktail. If anybody's had a relative or a friend who's had cancer, you probably know all about this, right? There's a cocktail of things, and some of it is hit or miss. There's a little bit of expertise that goes into, well, if you're like this sort of cancer, maybe this sort of cocktail will work better. We found that today, based on taking in all the big data, taking in your genetic makeup, taking in the things that come from your blood test and your biomarkers, for many cancers, not quite all yet, AI has gotten better at predicting these are exactly what cocktail to put together that will have the best odds of success. And they've compared, and generally is like 5 to 10% better than what most human experts are.
Yeah.
Wow. And how is it doing that, Ken? Like DNA analysis, or what exactly?
It's basically well, those are inputs. Yeah. Presumably it's things like which particular alleles you have and your genetic makeup. And also, again, I don't know the specific, but it'll probably look at specific blood markers as well and say, given where you are, what we know about the cancer and your genetic makeup. And then it's just a large statistical correlation thing. It's what AI does. It's just, I'm going to look across the millions of people and say, this is what's turned out to work best.
Yeah.
And it's just not reasonable to have any one human know all that stuff.
Yeah. Outcome-based healthcare is one of those dreams of healthcare that's been around for a while, and it requires a massive statistical sample to achieve any accuracy. And AI is capable of that now. So it's very possible that having a wide array of information from you, it can design something that has the best outcome for you, which is great. I'm also looking at the technologies that are designing things that are very hyper specific to the person, and I think that's exciting. I think Larry Ellison started talking about the use of AI, generative AI, in cancer research to design custom antibodies or custom vaccines that actually prevent cancer, and that's pretty exciting.
Cool. I think there was an article that I saw. I don't know if Aubrey has it, but like where people were actually the next step after cocktails is I'm going to, like you said, Joel, I'm going to personalize the antigen treatment for your particular cancer, right? I'm going to have something that targets you, not people that are kind of like you.
That's right.
Right.
For you, it would be called Aubrix, I think, the brand name, Aubrey. But yeah, it's part of this is it hails back to some of the original COVID research, and everybody famously knows that mRNA vaccine design was used to create the initial COVID vaccine, and that same type of technology. By the way, the COVID vaccine and the mRNA approach was partly designed by AI systems. The velocity that we obtained in getting that out quickly was largely due to the success of some of the AI systems. Now those systems are way better, so what can we do with that? And you've got an article here, Aubrey, that I think really puts the pin in that.
No, that's right. And for me, this one's actually a little bit older. I mean, we can see this January 2nd, but I skipped this article a couple of times just because we had so much other news. This to me is super important. I mean, it is a little bit deep because this is, MIT news. There are a lot of words in here that I didn't even, I had to Google to figure out what they meant because they're very, very medical. But coming down to it, that's exactly what this article is about. It is about the personalization of this. Not only are we going to be able to find things like, newer antibodies to treat these diseases earlier, but like you say, we're going to be able to do it specifically for other people. And I think it was an interesting thing. We were talking about this earlier too. Imagine the ability to have just a facial recognition scan that's there, and just based on maybe some of the genetic makeup that these models can find of your face, like boy, we know that there are certain markers or whatever, combined with maybe whatever it's got from your health records, that probably gets even faster. I mean,
yeah. This paper is about, of course, modeling proteins and protein folding and things like that is something that ML and AI has been applied to for a very long time. But our ability to do this has gone from just being able to do one protein to being able to look at one protein associated with one particular person. And the combination of the two, the first one is really intensely computationally expensive. The second was just not reachable except through the current level of technology. And that's fantastic. By the way, the word hypervariability in there, you talked about the words in there. That describes this podcast, hypervariability. But yeah, antibodies are one thing, but also vaccine design is big too. My dad worked for the U.S. Public Health Service for many years, and his specialty was in sanitization and epidemiology or epidemic control. And he always would say that the key to making sure that something doesn't spread beyond your control is to act as quickly as you possibly can. And I think that these technologies have taken the speed of design, the speed of research to just immense proportions. And the future is super bright for the medical industry and AI.
It is, and the funny thing is the theme. It seems like we've said the word many times. Usually, I think about this in terms of a bar, but healthcare for the underserved. That was, I mean, it's not just like, hey, I need another drink, bartender. It is really like you may not have the ability to get the medical care that you really require in some of these areas. And funny enough, this article, which Ken brought to us, was great. As I read through this, and I'm hoping I can see it, but they started in Rochester, New York. So they here it is. Years ago, I spoke with leaders in Rochester, New York, who highlighted this issue for me. And in two neighborhoods just 5 miles apart, they found a serious discrepancy in terms of how much health care the average person could get, what was available to them, etc.
It's important noting that it's Rochester, New York. Underserved areas doesn't necessarily mean third world countries. It could just mean that there is a rural area that has lost its healthcare hub. Running a hospital is incredibly expensive. We won't go into the reasons why that potentially is, but we've got a bunch of different problems facing us in the healthcare industry, and one of them is the availability of trained medical staff. There's a nursing shortage in this country, and so it's not just about being able to afford to operate a hospital. It's also being able to staff the hospital to appropriate levels to provide adequate patient care. And one of the things I'm really interested in is the concept of the health hub, and using AI within those hubs to increase the efficiency of the practitioner. So a doctor can see more patients and have the same level of accuracy, or a nurse can treat or monitor more patients without having to limit themselves to 2 or 3 patients per round. I think that those types of technologies are really game changing for the cost and availability of healthcare in underserved areas.
Right, and the combination of AI and telecommunications, the telemedicine is really good. I mean, I live on an island. For me to get to a hospital is a boat ride, and so the fact that if I can consult with a doctor, if I can find things out, I can get an X-ray actually locally, but I can't. I don't have a Class A hospital. But if that local hospital can take an X-ray and send it off somewhere, and within minutes I'll have an answer, that would be great, right? It saves me, 4 hours of trying to get back to the mainland.
We got to get you a helicopter.
The overhead, like doctors are burdened with a lot of sort of administrative, right? Like they see patients, they're doing their thing what they're trained on, but then they have to go and do the data input and deal with all the insurance and all the process. And perhaps that's another area where AI can help.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of paperwork involved in being a doctor or a nurse. And generative AI and its ability to look at what's been done for the patient and to write the reports. And I'll mention this specifically, the medical coding that's necessary related to that, which helps pay for the healthcare. That's a huge burden on doctors and nurses, and AI has great promise for solving that.
The two Ds, I keep coming back to today, I get the two Ds, democratization and decentralization. Democratization, we talk about all the bad things that happen from a cybersecurity perspective, and now individuals of Gen AI, Code Gen can do fancy things, but it's like democratization is also really useful. Now you can, people who don't have access to the best of everything can still get very good healthcare or other services. And decentralization, right? This enables decentralization, which is really, we talked about that, and we talked about decentralization from a computing standpoint and how much more efficient it is, and it brings down latency and all these things. We're doing the same thing in society with AI.
Yeah, it's great. More healthcare for more people and better healthcare.
Yeah,
it is. It's funny. I feel like we resolved all the healthcare this issue, and we resolved the economy problems in the right.
Yep, we fixed it. You heard it here first.
That's right.
So next week we're back to how do we fix the cybersecurity implications?
Sure, why not?
No, we're not. No, next week we're going to do pop culture.
Yeah, right? I think it's time for us to talk about have a little fun. Let's talk about what we see, the visions of AI and how it relates to the present day. I think that would be a really cool discussion. Yeah. Plus, it lets me talk about movies, which I love.
Yeah, and it's changed, right? I would think movies. I don't think you'd agree with this, Joel. The way that we depict anything, whether AI technology in the movies, reflects what we think of as culture of the time. And I think it's really interesting to go all the way back to like the 20s. I was thinking about Metropolis the other day.
Yeah,
all the way to how we got from Metropolis to Her. In the
last absolutely. And we talk a lot about on the positivity topic. We talk a lot about how AI is viewed as this uber scary thing in a lot of movies, but there's a frightening number of movies really that for whom a spontaneous emergence of AI is a cool thing, like something became rational and smart and almost human on its own. I think about things like Short Circuit,
Johnny Five
Alive. And there's also positive views of how technology can come out of systems like this.
You know what I'm going to do for next week, Joe? I'm going to try to make a graph of how positively or negatively AI is viewed against how the economy is doing over the last 100 years. I want to see if they're correlated.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe every single generation has a different perspective on it based on economic conditions. That's cool. We'll get right on that, Aubrey.
It's not just movies. You mentioned Metropolis, so I'm hoping Aubrey knows what I'm talking about here. That's a huge song and a huge album from a band called Dream Theater.
Oh yeah, Dream Theater. Yep.
And so the question to you, Aubrey, is: do you think AI can play guitar faster than John Petrucci? I'm not so sure.
Ooh, man.
Faster than? I don't know. The question is really, can it play better than Nuno Betancourt? I'm sorry, I'm still gonna say, it's weird because I'm not an Extreme guy. Not a fan of the band Extreme, but I gotta say Nuno is probably the best guitarist on the planet.
Most technical, yeah.
Right. Called
but
Eddie Van Halen.
He doesn't only do the shred stuff. Yeah, he can do lots of other things.
Right. And AI shred. I think that's the next area of research for all of us.
There was an article that talked about, I don't have it up and handy, but somebody was claiming that musicians don't actually like all the toil of producing songs, so perhaps AI is going to do that. And I'm thinking, I thought about this because I'm a musician, and it was like, you can make the case that lots of new songs are derivative or influenced by previous work, but there's always that thing that somebody does that's sort of like earth-shattering, right? Like Michael Jackson Thriller, just throwing something out there. So I can't imagine because the AI, and this is where I'm looking at you smart people here, like, is it going to be able to have that new creative thing that's never been done before, or is it just a continuous derivation of previous stuff, right?
I want to ask you, the musicians out here, so Byron, Aubrey, I wonder, do you think it'd be a reasonable Turing test? You take a piece and you have an AI play it, And now, is there, right? And reminds me of these old Star Trek episodes where Data plays the violin, but with no emotion. Can you tell that this is being played by a human or not a human based on how it's being played? That's the music Turing test.
That's an interesting test, because there was another article about how even if one artist performs another artist's song, you can clearly distinguish between the two. So if I were to prompt some sort of AI music, play this solo like David Gilmour, I don't think it can.
No.
Just like a human couldn't either.
Yeah.
And I can tell it's him by like one or two notes.
Although it could potentially get someone like Nuno Betancourt, who is like a computer. I mean, the guy is
True.
Anyways, I think we're getting into the pop culture piece of this a little too soon. So that's like a sneak preview for next week, I think.
Yeah.
Well, in the interim.
Yeah, it's been great discussing the sweetness and light. There's a whole bunch of great stuff going on in AI today. I know we lose sight of that sometime, and it's great to pop up above the surface of the water and look around a little while. So thanks, Aubrey.
Agreed. Thank you guys for coming. I really appreciate it, Joel, Ken, and obviously AI fanboy. Thanks for showing up.
Anytime.
Fanboy.
And of course, community, thank you for tuning in. We love having you here, and we hope you're going to join us for many more episodes of this AI Friday every single week. See ya.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
We hope you liked this instantiation of AI Friday. We'll be instantiated again next week, same time, same place, and hope to again infer with you. Before we depart, promptly subscribe for all our content and click like to let us know you enjoyed AI Friday.